Hello, and welcome back to Miss Bell's classroom. Today, class, we're going to be talking about Earth's oceans. And what makes them so special. So we'll be talking about why are they important, some of the properties, elements, things like that. How did the oceans form? And then also some of the life that is in the oceans. So I hope that you enjoy this lesson. So to start off, 71% of the Earth is covered by oceans, and less than 1% of living space on Earth is on land. The other 99% is in the oceans. So ocean water makes up about 97% of the water on Earth. And oceans are home to many, many species. Every square inch of the ocean is habitable. So more than 80% of all life is found beneath the waves, and oceans create over half of our oxygen. So if thinking about, if we didn't have an ocean, then we wouldn't have land life. So we really do need our oceans for life on land, but the oceans don't need life on land to survive. So the average depth of the ocean is 2 miles, and all of which is habitable. 80% of known life forms are marine. So 33 animal phyla, of which 32 live in the ocean, 12 live on land. 50% of the world's population lives within 50 miles of the ocean. And about 50% of international trade is hazardous to the ocean. So we know that we discovered the ocean covers about 71% of Earth's surface. Oceans account for 97% of Earth's water. So that means all rivers, lakes, glaciers, snow, and groundwater make up only 3%. The average depth of the ocean is about 3,800 miles, and at its deepest depth, it's greater than 29,000 feet. The average temperature in the ocean is about 39 degrees Fahrenheit. So now we're going to talk about the ocean's characteristics, features, and life forms. So thinking about, an ocean, why do you think oceans are important to Earth? So think about that. So oceans affect all living things, even those far from the shore. So oceans provide a place for many organisms to live. So how were the oceans formed on Earth? So when Earth was still a young planet, many active volcanoes existed. As they erupted, lava, ash, and gases were released from deep within Earth. So one of these gases was water vapor. So over millions of years, the water vapor cooled enough to condense and form clouds. Then torrential rains began to fall from the clouds. Eventually, much of the land was covered by water that formed. So the oceans are Pacific, Indian, Atlantic, Arctic, and Southern. Pacific being the largest ocean. The area and volume of the Pacific Ocean is greater than the Atlantic and Indian combined. So a sea is one of the largest bodies of salt water, less than an ocean, found on Earth's surface. So the Mediterranean, Arctic, and Black Sea are really a part of the Atlantic Ocean. So what is ocean water made of? So when we think of ocean water, we think of salt water, right? So it's a mixture of gases and solids dissolved into pure water. So people who study the ocean believe oceans contain all the natural elements on Earth. So 85 of 90 have been found in the ocean. So ocean water is 96% pure water. Chlorine and sodium make up the next largest concentration of elements. And then sodium chloride is table salt as well. So I mentioned earlier that there are gases in the ocean water as well. So the most abundant gases in the ocean water are nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. So the amounts of these elements vary with depth. So they are more abundant at the ocean's surface, where sunlight causes more plant life. The deeper you go, the less you're going to find these gases. So now we're going to talk about some of the characteristics of the ocean. So the temperature on ocean water affects, the life that can live in the ocean, and also affects the nutrients. So warm water holds less dissolved gas than cold water. When ocean water is cold, like in polar regions, it sinks and carries oxygen-rich water to the ocean depths. So as a result, fish and other animals can live in deep parts of the ocean because they're getting that nutrients that's being pulled down. So another thing that you've probably heard of in the ocean are waves. So a wave is a rhythmic movement that carries energy through the water. So waves are caused by high winds blowing on the top of the water. Another thing that we hear about too is tides. So tides are created by the gravitational attraction of Earth and the Moon and of the Earth and the Sun. So a tide is a giant wave that can be thousands of kilometers long, but only 1 meter to 2 meters high in the open ocean. So tides are created by that gravitational attraction of the Moon, Sun, and Earth. So throughout a day, the water level at the ocean's edge changes, which causes it to rise and fall in the sea. Another thing we're going to talk about is upwelling. So upwelling is the upward movement of cold water from the ocean depth. So draw a little diagram here. So we're going to say that this is the land here. Land. And then let's mix some water here. So this is the water. So we got land and water. And then up here with the land, trees. So we have some trees there. So we're saying that this is the ocean. So upwelling brings up tiny organisms, minerals, and other nutrients from the deeper layers of the water. Without upwelling, the surface of the ocean would be nutrient deficient. So when we have an upwelling right here, it's coming up here. So this is the cold water, and upwelling brings up those nutrients from the cold water, and then it's on the surface area, which allows, for nutrients to be up there, and allows for life to get the nutrients, fish, other things like that at the surface. So the next thing we're going to talk about is El Nino. So El Nino is an abnormal climate event that occurs every 2 to 7 years in the Pacific Ocean. So it causes changes in the wind, currents, and weather patterns. So El Nino interrupts the pattern of upwelling, so the nutrients are not brought up to the surface. Without nutrients provided by the upwelling, fish and other organisms cannot find food. So that leads to, the organisms to die, and, weather patterns are also changed in that case. So the ocean floor has higher mountains, deeper canyons, and larger, flatter plains. Earthquakes occur more often. The rocks are very different, and the crust is thinner in the ocean. The continental shelf is the gradual sloping end of a continent that extends under the ocean. So the ocean covering the continental shelf can be as deep as 350 meters. Large mineral, oil, and natural gas deposits are found here. So at the edge of a continental slope or shelf, the ocean floor plunges steeply 4 to 5 kilometers. The continental slope extends from the outer edge of the continental shelf down to the ocean floor. So another thing that you may have heard of are trenches. So trenches are kind of the, that deep slope as well in the ocean. So you've got the floor and then you have the water. So if we were to draw that, you might look something like this, and come back up and you have the land. So here's the water, and then here's the land. Trenches are kind of just this area that goes down. Another thing in the ocean are mid-ocean ridges. So a mid-ocean ridge is the area in an ocean basin where new ocean floor is formed. So mid-ocean ridges form an almost continuous mountain belt that extends from the Arctic Ocean down through the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, around Africa, into the Indian Ocean, and across the Pacific Ocean. In the Atlantic, it is called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and in the Pacific Antarctica Ridge. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the ocean life. So the plant and animal life in the ocean is affected by several factors. So one factor is the amount of sunlight that penetrates the ocean. So another factor is the temperature of the ocean water, and pressure in the ocean is another factor. So we have sunlight, temperature, and pressure. Those are kind of the main factors that will impact the type of life, where there's life at as well. So the major groups of ocean life are plant and animals in the ocean, and they're classified into 3 major groups. So the 3 major groups are plankton, nekton, and benthos. So plankton float near the surface where sunlight can penetrate. So most of the plankton are very small, such as algae. Plankton are the main food for many other larger organisms. They account for most of the organisms in the ocean. So like a jellyfish, it floats on the ocean surface. It's one example of plankton. So it's near the sunlight, and most of the other organisms will go up to the top and get that food. Another a group of animal life is nexton. So nexton includes whales, seals, dolphins, squid, octopuses, barracuda, and other fish are all nekton. So nekton are free swimming organisms that feed on other nekton as well as plankton. So many have adaptations enabling them to function at depths that have great pressure and no light. So many of the fish that you see, whales, seals, anything that is a free swimming organism is a nekton. Plankton are the things that float on the ocean surface. And then the last group of ocean life are benthos. So organisms that live on the ocean floor are benthos. So crabs and lobster are just a few examples. So the deep bottom environments are sparsely populated with benthos. So some benthos are plants that live on the ocean floor in shallow waters where sun can penetrate. So we have plankton, they live at the top surface, they need that sunlight. Nekton are free swimming organisms, and benthos are living at the bottom floor. So that is all that I have for you today about ocean life and Earth's oceans. So I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you next time.